In 1963, a Turkish man in the town of Derinkuyu was renovating his basement. He swung a sledgehammer into a wall. The wall gave way. Dust cleared. Behind it was a tunnel. He stepped through. The tunnel did not end. It descended one level, then another, then another. He had found an underground city that nobody in the modern world knew existed. "18 levels carved into volcanic rock. Churches, stables, wine presses, schools, grain silos, ventilation shafts plunging 85 meters into the earth. Half-ton stone doors that pivoted on a single point and sealed from the inside. A city large enough to hide 20,000 people for months at a time." The mainstream narrative about Derinkuyu is straightforward. Early Christians, fleeing Roman persecution, dug these cities for protection sometime around the 2nd or 3rd century CE. They hid. They survived. End of story. It is a reasonable account, and parts of it are almost certainly accurate. But here is the thing that serious researchers keep returning to. When you look at the actual engineering, the physical evidence, the tool marks in the deepest levels, the ventilation physics, the timeline, the simple Christian hiding narrative starts to collapse under its own weight. Not because anyone was lying. Because the city is older, stranger, and far more technically sophisticated than the textbooks ever suggested. Get comfortable. There is a great deal here, and every piece of it is real. Derinkuyu is not a cave, it is not a bunker, it is a fully engineered subterranean civilization. Let us walk through what is actually down there, level by level, because the sheer scale of the place is difficult to absorb from photographs. The first 2 levels beneath the surface contain stables for livestock. Animals, cattle, sheep, goats lived down here. This tells you something immediately. Whoever designed Derinkuyu planned for occupation lasting weeks or months, not hours. You do not bring livestock underground for a one-night raid. The 3rd and 4th levels house kitchens, food storage rooms, and communal gathering spaces. Massive stone basins carved directly into the floor served as grain mills and olive presses. These are not rough, hurried excavations. The surfaces are smoothed, the dimensions deliberate, the layout efficient. And then there are the doors. At strategic points throughout the city, massive circular stone doors, each weighing roughly half a ton, were carved from single blocks of volcanic tuff. They sit in recessed pockets in the walls and pivot on a central axis. When closed from the inside, they cannot be opened from the outside. You can push all you want. The door rotates into a groove and locks. The only way through is from within. This is not the work of terrified civilians improvising a hiding spot. This is defensive engineering designed by people who understood sieges. Each door effectively seals an entire section of the city, turning Derinkuyu into a sequence of fortified compartments. If invaders breached the upper levels, the population could retreat deeper, sealing each section behind them. The 5th and 6th levels contain what has been identified as a church, a cruciform chamber with an altar and seating carved from the living rock. There is a school on the 7th level, a winery on the 8th. And this is where most visitors stop. The 8th level is the lowest currently open to the public, fully excavated, lit, and mapped. But Derinkuyu does not end there. 10 more levels sit beneath it collapsed, partially filled with rubble, unexplored, 18 levels total. And ground-penetrating surveys suggest the lowest chambers may connect to tunnels that extend for kilometers in multiple directions. Now, let us talk about the engineering, because this is where the conventional story first runs into difficulty. Derinkuyu has a ventilation system, not a simple one, a network of vertical shafts, more than 50 of them plunging from the surface down through all 18 levels. The main shaft drops 85 meters. That is the height of a 28-story building, carved by hand into volcanic rock, with Bronze Age or early Iron Age tools. Here is the engineering problem that makes structural engineers stop and think. Ventilating a single underground room is straightforward. You dig a hole to the surface. Air circulates. Ventilating 18 levels of interconnected chambers, kitchens with open fires, stables full of animals, thousands of human beings breathing and burning lamps and cooking, that requires a designed system. Air has to move. It has to enter, circulate through every occupied space, and exit. Smoke from the kitchens has to rise and dissipate without filling the entire city. Carbon dioxide from respiration has to be replaced with fresh oxygen. Derinkuyu's shafts are positioned at precise intervals that create a pressure differential. Warm air from the deeper levels rises through the central shafts. Fresh air is drawn down through peripheral shafts to replace it. The system works on the same principle as a modern chimney convection, but scaled across an 18-level vertical city. The people who designed this understood fluid dynamics. They may not have had the equations, but they had the working knowledge. And here is what makes that uncomfortable for the standard timeline. If Derinkuyu was dug by desperate Christians hiding from Rome in the 2nd or 3rd century, say, when did they develop this understanding? Where are the earlier, simpler, experimental underground cities that show them learning ventilation engineering through trial and error? There are none. Derinkuyu appears fully formed. The ventilation works. The stone doors work. The water system there is a well on the lowest accessible level, cut 55 meters deep, connected to an underground aquifer that still provides fresh water today works. This does not look like a first attempt. It looks like a civilization doing something it had done before. There is something else. Look at the walls in the deeper levels, levels 7 and 8. The last ones open to the public. The tool marks change. The upper levels, the ones closest to the surface, show the characteristic marks of iron chisels, narrow, parallel, consistent with the tools available in the early Christian era. But the lower levels show broader, deeper marks, more consistent with bronze tools or even harder stone implements. And in the deepest accessible chambers, the walls are smooth in a way that iron tools on soft volcanic tuff do not typically produce. The technique was different. The tools were different. The people were different. This is not speculation. It is a physical record written into the walls themselves, visible to anyone who looks. And it suggests something the official timeline has never adequately addressed. Derinkuyu was not built in one phase by one group of people. It was expanded downward over an extraordinary span of time, which brings us to the question the site itself demands. Who really built Derinkuyu, and when? The standard story early Christians, 2nd or 3rd century, say, is not entirely wrong. There is evidence of Christian occupation. The cruciform church, the fish symbols carved into some walls, references in early Byzantine texts to underground refuges in Cappadocia. Christians did use this city. That part of the narrative holds, but the evidence that they built it from scratch is remarkably thin. The earliest written reference to underground cities in Cappadocia comes from the Greek historian Xenophon, writing around 370 BC. In his Anabasis, an account of the march of 10,000 Greek mercenaries through Anatolia, Xenophon describes finding entire towns built underground in this region, houses, storage rooms, livestock quarters, all beneath the surface. That is 6 centuries before the Christians were supposedly digging Derinkuyu. Xenophon was describing cities that already existed. Now, let us go deeper. Archaeological surveys of the lowest accessible levels at Derinkuyu have identified tool marks and construction techniques consistent with the Phrygian period, roughly 8th to 7th century BC. The Phrygians were a Bronze Age to Iron Age civilization that occupied central Anatolia long before the Greeks, long before the Romans, long before Christianity existed even as a concept. And beneath the Phrygian marks, the evidence gets murkier, but potentially more significant. The Hittite Empire ruled this region from roughly 1650 to 1200 BC. Their capital, Hattusa, lies about 200 kilometers north of Derinkuyu. The Hittites were master builders who carved entire temple complexes into living rock. You can visit the sanctuary of Yazilkaya today and see what they were capable of. The tool marks in Derinkuyu's deepest levels bear comparison to Hittite rock-cut structures. The implication, and it is one that growing numbers of archaeologists are willing to voice, is that Derinkuyu's origins may extend to the 2nd millennium BC, more than 3,000 years before the present. The Christians found it. They used it. They may have expanded the upper levels, but the city was already ancient when they arrived. Now, here is the thing that makes the standard narrative genuinely difficult to defend. If the Hittites, a Bronze Age civilization, carved the first levels of Derinkuyu around 1500 BC, using bronze tools in volcanic tuff, ventilating 18 levels without mechanical pumps, engineering half-ton stone doors that still pivot smoothly 3,000 years later, then our understanding of Bronze Age technical capability needs significant revision. And if it was not the Hittites, if it was someone earlier still, because the deepest levels of the connected underground cities show traces that some researchers argue may predate even the Hittite period, then we are looking at a civilization or civilizations whose technical achievements have been almost entirely erased from the historical record. This is not about aliens. This is not about lost super civilizations. This is about something more uncomfortable. The people we call primitive were capable of things we have spent a very long time assuming they could not do. And the evidence for that capability is sitting under Cappadocia, waiting to be fully excavated. Derinkuyu is not alone. That is one of the most important facts about this place, and it is one the tour guides often forget to mention in a way that communicates the scale. Beneath the region of Cappadocia, more than 200 underground cities have been identified. 200. Some are small, a few chambers, a single level. Others rival Derinkuyu in complexity. Kaymakul, just 9 kilometers away, descends 8 levels. Skonak, to the north, has its own ventilation system and stone doors. And critically, a tunnel has been found connecting Derinkuyu to Kaymakul. It runs for 9 kilometers underground, a 9-kilometer tunnel between two underground cities. That is not a hiding place. That is infrastructure. That is a civilization that invested generations of labor into creating an interconnected subterranean network. If the other cities also have connecting tunnels, and there is evidence suggesting many of them do, then Cappadocia is underlain by one of the largest underground networks ever constructed by human beings. And we have explored less than 10% of it. The excavation of Derinkuyu itself is nowhere near complete. Only the upper 8 levels have been cleared of rubble and opened to tourists. 10 more levels sit beneath them. The lower chambers are known to exist ground-penetrating radar, and seismic surveys have mapped voids extending downward, but they remain sealed by centuries of collapsed rock and sediment. What is in those 10 unexplored levels? Hittite tools? Pre-Hittite inscriptions? Evidence that the city's origins go back further than anyone currently claims? We do not know. And we do not know is, in many ways, the most honest thing anyone can say about Derinkuyu. But here is what keeps serious researchers returning to this site. Every time excavation advances, every time a new level is accessed, the dates get pushed back. The city gets older, The engineering gets harder to explain with the tools available at the time. The gap between what the textbooks say and what the physical evidence shows grows wider. The truthful conclusion is the one historians least enjoy giving. The full story of Derinkuyu has not been written yet. The people who dug the deepest levels did not leave us their names, their language, or their reasons. They left us their work, 18 levels of it. And we are still, millennia later, trying to understand what they accomplished. 200 underground cities. 9-kilometer connecting tunnels. Ventilation shafts plunging the height of a modern skyscraper. Half-ton stone doors that still pivot after 3,000 years. 10 unexplored levels beneath the ones we can visit. Derinkuyu does not fit neatly into the story we tell about the ancient world. And that is precisely why it matters. The mainstream narrative about early Christians hiding from Rome is not a lie. It is an incompleteness. It describes the last chapter of a much longer book, the people who used the city last, not the people who built it first. The physical evidence, carved into the walls themselves, tells a deeper story, one that runs through the Hittites, through the Phrygians, through centuries of Anatolian civilization that left no written record of what they built underground. And the unexplored levels are still down there, still waiting, still holding whatever the deepest chambers hold. If this kind of careful, evidence-based exploration is what you are here for, there is more where this came from. Take a moment to subscribe. It genuinely helps us bring more of these stories to you. And I want to hear from you. 10 unexplored levels beneath what we can visit. 200 connected underground cities across Cappadocia. A network of tunnels we have barely begun to map. What do you think lies in the deepest chambers of Derinkuyu? And who do you believe dug them? Drop your theory in the comments. We read every single one. If you have not yet seen our investigation into the Serapeum of Saqqara, 24 granite boxes weighing 70 tons each, carved with a precision that modern engineers describe as effectively impossible, that video is on screen now. Because Derinkuyu is not the only ancient site that refuses to cooperate with the official timeline, and the more of them you look at together, the harder it becomes to dismiss any single one. Until next time, stay curious and never stop asking questions.